Lego fans, it's a beautiful and breezy morning in the Quebec countryside, and it seems like the perfect time to build the Saturn V rocket, kit number 92176 at 1,969 pieces, and this tall behemoth at about 100 centimeters or just under 40 inches tall to go through the entire launch sequence from takeoff, separation, landing on the moon, and splashing down in the ocean. And that's a lot of features to have in this pretty little space kit. And I'm definitely looking forward to all of that. And of course, before we can have a closer look at it, first, let's get it unboxed and get it built so then you can have a closer look at the Saturn V rocket. If you weren't paying attention to the beginning of the video, hadn't noticed as this thing was being built, or remarked on it currently, this kit is tall. At 100 centimeters or about 40 inches, this is definitely the tallest kit I've ever assembled, and might even rival some of the towers I made when I was a kid. And this rocket isn't just one piece, as it comes apart into all the modules as the real one did, having the first stage rocket, the second stage rocket, third stage rocket, lunar module, command module, service module, and, atop it all, the launch escape system. Breaking it down to the three largest components, we have the first stage rocket, which is the largest one here, second stage rocket, the other one that's standing upright, and the third stage rocket, which still has the other modules attached to the top of it. Seen here, laying on its side, because unlike the others, it only has one little rocket engine, so it can't stand upright, which, for the purposes of space exploration, is not a problem. The first stage and largest of the rockets provide the main thrust for astronauts to break free of the atmosphere, with its 5 massive engines able to generate 7.5 million pounds of thrust in just about 2.25 minutes. It'll burn through 203,000 gallons of kerosene, 331 gallons of liquid oxygen, and be discarded at 205,000 feet, or about 62.5 kilometers, and plunge back down to the ocean, where it will remain till the end of time. Then it's up to the Stage 2 rocket to take over, where it burns for a little bit longer, at about 6 minutes, where it'll get our astronauts to about 605,000 feet, or roughly 184.5 kilometers up, before it too is discarded and falls back to the ocean. At which point, it's time for the third stage rocket to take over, and break our astronauts out of Earth orbit and sending them to the moon. While in transit, the cone would separate, freeing the service and control modules, and exposing the lunar lander that had been sealed away within. At this point, with the launch well behind them, the astronauts would eject the launch escape system, rotate the service and control models a full 180 degrees, and slowly creep back towards the third stage rocket, where it could pick up the lunar lander, detaches it from the rocket, which is then discarded like the others, so our astronauts could make their final journey into lunar orbit. Once a stable orbit around the moon has been achieved, the astronauts would make their way from the control module into the lunar lander, where, of course, they would land on the moon, where they'd be able to run their experiments, gather their samples, shoot some film, take some photos, before getting back into the lunar lander and taking off, leaving the lower half behind where it remains for future explorers to come across, and rejoining with the control module up in orbit. At which point, the astronauts would break lunar orbit, make their way back to Earth, and finally, separate the control module from the service module so that this one little component can make a safe splash landing in the ocean, where our astronauts could be then picked up by a helicopter rescue team. So to rewind that a little bit, that means to get this one small module, which fits into this small portion of the rocket's cone, with the rest, all this, either be consumed or discarded. While it is a very impressive feat, it was still a very wasteful endeavor, which is why the current age of space travel is so interesting, where the rockets are being designed so they can land and be reused. Now, let's have a closer look at the stages of this rocket, starting with the first stage. As it is all the way up, the body is constructed very solidly into a near perfect cylinder. There are 4 fins evenly spaced around the base, and above each of them, it's vertically printed USA, and at about mid-height up the body, there's an American flag. On the bottom, there are the 5 massive engines that are required to lift this behemoth rocket off the ground. And up top, there's a little cavity for the second stage rocket to nestle into, and 4 pairs of clips in the 4 corners to firmly clip onto the base of the second stage rocket. As we see here, at the base of the second stage rocket, we have our 4 pairs of clips are in the 4 corners, and the 5 smaller but equally important rocket engines. Along the side, it's vertically printed United States, and this is repeated 3 more times, equally spaced around the exterior. And at the top, the diameter of the rocket starts to come in a little bit, and much like it is on the first stage rocket, we have a little cavity, plus 2 pairs of clips to hold the third stage rocket in place, which we can see here, with the 2 pairs of pins for the clips, and the singular rocket. Next up, we have these 3 supports, which, if you so choose, you could use to display your rocket horizontally. But personally, I really like it standing upright, so these are going in my parts bin. Finally, this kit doesn't come with any minifigures, but it does have 3 astronaut nanofigures, and 1 American flag. So all in all, I would have to say this kit is really impressive. I mean, first off, it's really tall, and despite its height and narrow base, it's pretty stable. Despite it being designed to come apart, it's really solidly assembled, and the whole thing is done in one sleek, nearly studless design, making for a great display piece. And even though I strongly believe this was not designed as a play kit, I most definitely have been having a lot of fun flying it around the room, thanks in large part to the great design that holds it together so well. So, absolutely great as a display piece. I cautiously recommend it as a play kit, and as to the components, if you're looking for a lot of smooth pieces, there's definitely a lot of good ones in here. Also, this kit has no stickers, so you get some nicely printed USA, United States, and American flags 4 times over for each, and all that is of course pretty great. Now, one little note about the build. I found it to be deceptively simple, in that it's really very easy to follow along. There's nothing complicated here, but the 4 sides of the rocket are not identical, so you have to pay close attention to make sure you're attaching the correct side in the correct place. Otherwise, like me, you're going to backtrack a few times. Not the worst thing, but just pay attention. Ultimately, it's no surprise to me that this kit was brought back from retirement. The build was a lot of fun, it displays really well, I have cautiously enjoyed playing with it, and I would say, get one while you can.